Today, we're going to talk about what goes into your FI number. So Nathan Frey, one of our Budgetdog Academy students, asked me this question a while back, but I think this is probably relevant to you, and I want to make sure I break this down in detail. So when we talk about FI number, what is the FI number? The FI stands for financial independence. So it is the number that once you get to from an investment perspective, you are now financially free and you can live a life of whatever you would like to do on a daily basis. This is something my wife and I got to at the age of 32, and I want to show more people exactly how to do it, but also the true considerations that go into this besides just a number. So let's break this down on the screen really fast. So the very first thing we want to look into is the timeline. And so I have a calculator. I'm going to show you in a second exactly how to do this and how to calculate it, but I need to know a realistic timeline, because when I talk to people and I say, okay, what is the timeline in which you want to actually retire or, live the life that you want to live? Most people are like, well, today. And that's fine, and I understand, but it needs to be understood that we need an actual realistic timeline. And typically, don't want to burst your bubble, it is at least a decade away, unless you're very far ahead already and you've already worked towards this, or it could be even 2 decades away. But I think along the way, what I will explain in detail here shortly is that there are levels to this. So financial freedom is like full financial freedom, but it's not black and white. There's some gray area in between where during that timeline, let's say you have a 20-year time window to become financially free. Maybe at year 10, a spouse takes a step, back from work and she or he decides to stay at home, right? So there are things that you can adjust, or maybe the job that you're actually working changes and you actually do something of passion, and maybe that means less money, but you already know based on your FI number and your timeline that it's totally fine to do what you want to do. And oftentimes people don't really want to retire. They want to do what they want to do. And so along this journey, you can actually start to shift your lifestyle to exactly how you want it to look like. I'll give you an example. My wife and I, 3 years ago, changed entirely what we did. I quit my 9-to-5. She quit her 9-to-5. She stayed home. I began to run my own business. And so we shifted into the life that we wanted to live at the age of 30, but we didn't come be actually financially free until 32. So sometimes it's not black and white. Like I said, sometimes this is a slow progression in a change of lifestyle with time. And so that's something else you got to consider. So don't get discouraged if you see the number today. You calculate the number with our free tool that we're going to give you in the show notes below. Don't be discouraged, because you might have way more opportunity than you actually think. So the timeline has to be realistic. Do not tell me tomorrow. Let's think 10, 20, maybe even 30 years away. The second thing is desired lifestyle. Now, desired lifestyle is a very important thing to think about, because most people are not going to be honest with themselves. They're going to go ahead and just say, well, I'm just going to live like this right now. Then they get to retirement and real life happens. Like they have medical bills, or they want to travel, or that little ideal spreadsheet they put together isn't really accurate, and they're actually needing more than they budgeted for or they expected. And so not knowing this number is going to hurt you in a massive way. Do not lie to yourself. You're only going to hurt yourself. The worst thing in the world is trying to be financially free, leaving that 9-to-5 job, that career, going about, financial freedom for the next 5 to 10 years. And all of a sudden, at the age of 50, you have to go back into the workforce, and you're 10 years removed from the workforce and your skill set. That's not a good place to be. So the more honest you are, the better off you're going to be. Now, the next thing is a free tool that I'm going to give you guys myself, is the calculation itself. The actual number, true FI number, to figure out what it takes to actually be financially free. I will show you that in a second, but before we do that, I also want you to always account for wiggle room. There's always going to be something that pops up, right? And we can't predict what the future holds, but what I want to say is be extra conservative. I will tell you this, the average kid from age 0 to 18 costs about $250,000 in the United States. Our daughter, she's immunocompromised, she has a seizure disorder, and we've spent over that at the age of 3, to give you perspective. So averages are great. Data out there is great, but everybody's situation is going to be different, and you have to account for stuff that pops up. So I would be extra conservative in this estimate. Now, with that being said, let's shift over to the actual financial freedom tool that I think is going to help you guys a lot. So this is a personal tool that I have myself, and I think this will help you a lot, and I'll put it in the show notes below so you guys all can use it. But let's walk through exactly what this means, okay? So the first thing I want to know is how much in investments that you have, right? So let's just say we have $100,000 sitting in our investments. That could be a 401k, that could be an IRA, that could be a taxable brokerage, all that kind of stuff, right? We have 100,000 collectively with our investments. That is our starting point. What are our current monthly expenses? Now, when we put current monthly expenses in here, we really want to think about our future monthly expenses in a sense, right? Because when we become financially free, technically speaking, we are thinking in the future. We are thinking the expenses that our lifestyle is going to, need at that time in the future. So really, truly think about your monthly expenses in the sense of that. Back to this sheet right here is be honest, be realistic. That's okay. And be conservative, right? These three metrics of all the considerations that go into this calculation are going to be huge. They're going to help you. You're going to be better off as a result. So be honest with yourself when you do this. So let's just say that's $5,000. Let's say our target age is actually 50 years old. So we update this to 50 years old. And let's say our current age is 30 years old. So we're 30, we're 20 years away from our expected target FI age. So like when we're going to be financially free. And then how much are we contributing right now? So let's say right now we're contributing $2,000 a month, right? And what is our expected return? You can keep 8%. I have a default in here for you, but honestly, it just kind of depends. It depends if you're educated. If you're educated, you know what you're doing. I think 8% is a pretty realistic number. You could be upward of 10, you could be north of 10 if you're better than the market type stuff. So it does depend. Historically speaking, the market, the S&P 500 in particular, has returned 10%, but that is not the case for most people. They're not probably going to get 10% return over the long haul. They're probably going to be a little south of that, and that's very normal. You don't want to be very south of it. That's going to be an issue. So given this, your estimated portfolio target is $2.7 million. This is what you need in your actual portfolio by the age of 50 years old, starting at 30, contributing, all the stuff, all the other facts that we have on the screen. And your estimated income is going to be $9,000 per month. This is the amount that you're able to pull from your actual investment balance. Now, your target contributions are $37.63, but as you see up here, we're only contributing $2,000. So if we really want to get to that actual target, we need to increase our contributions in quite a bit. So if our current portfolio is 100,000, this gray bar right here, our estimated current growth based on what we input up here is at this yellow end of the yellow bar, gold bar right here. So we're only projected to have about $1.7 million, and we are short by almost $1 million by the age of 45. So it's 2025. This is the current year, 20 years, obviously 30 to age 50, which would be 2045. We need to do a lot more, which then down here says, based on your inputs, it's estimated by age 50, 2045, you could need 2.7 million, the 2.7s right here, invested to reach financial independence. Following your current investment strategy, you're projected to have 1.6 million, 1.7, like we said, by 2045, leaving a huge gap. To help close the gap, consider a monthly investment of $3,700 to help reach that target. So if you adjusted this, obviously you would have this $3,763, and now this would go to zero, right? But let's go back to $2,000 right here. If I have this gap, my next step is understanding my free cash flow, because this 2,000 is derived from my free cash flow. This is where a budget tool comes into play. If I don't have a good budget tool at play, I don't know how much I actually have at play. So let's say our income is $10,000, and this is just my internal sheet that I use personally and also my Budgetdog Academy students. But let's say your income is $10,000. Your variable expenses are $7,050, and your savings and investments are $2,950. So you're close. If you go look at this, 30, you need what, $37.63? So if I look at this ideal number, if I can type in right, 3763, I do not have enough to save up, but let's see how much short, what's my deficit? 3763. Let's take the difference of that minus our 2950 that we currently are doing. We're short $813. So this is my gold mine. If I now know the clear-cut picture of exactly what I need, there is no guessing in personal finance. It is crazy when people don't know these numbers and don't know how to find these numbers, because that just tells me there's a lack or a knowledge gap that if they found these, they'd be totally fine. This 813 is the key to your financial freedom. There are multiple ways you can do it. You can increase your income or you can decrease your expenses. I can tell you right now, if you're looking at this, my first go-to is, at least in my head, is to increase my income. Thinking of value add activities that you can help other people with to then make an extra $813 a month. How can you actually make $813 a month? There are millions of ways. I help students think through this all the time. That shouldn't be hard to do, an $813 gap. That should be fairly simple and straightforward. The problem becomes is if you can't find a way to earn that extra income, now we got to cut our expenses. And that is the only way. Here's the other kicker. Let's say neither one works, or we have made excuses as to why this won't work for us. Those people, well, this won't happen. There's no way I can make that much. Yeah, you can. Very simple, actually. I could do this in my sleep, and I will show you how to do it in my sleep if you ever work with me in Budgetdog Academy. And in fact, if you guys are looking to take your game to the next level, all you got to do is click on this button right here, learn how to invest in financial freedom. And this would take you over to taking this to the next step, which I highly recommend you to do. Just be smart. Don't be dumb. And so this right here, this financial independence calculator is all good for this. But if I can't get this number, my goal in 20 years, this is where the realistic part comes into play. Maybe I change this to 55 and I see what my need is. Now it's 2531. So now instead of needing 3763, I can just go back here and adjust my age and numbers. And so 2531 per month, boom, that is more than I actually have invested right here, 2950. So I actually have a surplus. So now it's 2950. And it would be 2950. Well, sorry, it'd be 25. What was it? 2531, 2531. I have a gap of, or surplus of 419. And so I actually have $419 more, which I can kind of speed it up and you can kind of play these numbers. Maybe it's 53, maybe it's 54. You get my point. Probably about 54 here, 2736. We're pretty close. So you can adjust these numbers, and this is how you actually get to that number. Now, once you actually do so, all of these investments right here that you have set up for that FI number need to be automated. So now every time our income increases, our automations stay the same. We can increase those, but they never break. We keep them base level at all times. If we want to increase our income, we can't adjust our spend. We increase our income and we take that extra and we put it towards our goals to fast track them, or we just continue to use that. But we keep the baseline of what we want to hit our FI number in place at all times. We never negotiate. You never negotiate with this. If you do, you're not going to hit your goals. And this is why people don't, because they think of all these other ways and they don't have their whole entire fortress of finances set up. And that's the problem with most people. And so if you figure a way out to do this, it's very simple. I do it all the time. I do it for myself and my wife. I've done it for thousands of people in Budgetdog Academy. And again, if you want to apply to join Budgetdog Academy, you know where to find it right here. Learn how to invest financial freedom. This link to this financial independence calculator is in the show notes below. So you can go there and you can click on this link to join and talk with one of my teammates to join the academy, which will change your life by numerous ways. It's the best thing in the world. So anyways, guys, let me know if you guys need additional help. Send me DMs, ask me questions. I'm always here on Instagram, social media, anywhere. Do not be shy. Ask questions. And I will see you next Monday.